So I was at an event relatively recently, and I heard someone say the words, "I didn't actually do anything." And in the context that they said it, it was so refreshing that I made a note of it because I thought this would be a good thing to talk about in one of these vlogs, because there's like a valuable little principle there that relates to Qigong about attribution and misattribution. So that is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. Okay, so this was actually, it's probably a couple of months ago that I went out to. It was a kind of an open day. I went out with a friend, and as part of that open day, they had like a presentation at the beginning where everyone was sitting around, and they had a slideshow on a projector, and then after that there was a tour of this facility. And so we were in this presentation, and the person running the presentation wasn't all that technologically I guess comfortable, although they did okay. They did a fine job. But they had a slideshow on a projector which they were running off their laptop, and unfortunately there was a little bit of an issue with how the projector was working, and they were partway through their slideshow and it just stopped, and couldn't figure out what was going on. And so there was quite a young child, maybe getting towards being a very young teenager, who was there as well, who had some involvement with what was going on. I guess he was the child of someone involved in this event, and he came to help figure out the projector. He must have been like 11 or 12 or something, I think. And so the first time the projector stopped, he came and he like did some different things, and it started again, and that was great. So he went back away and continued on with the presentation, and then it stopped again. And this is getting a bit frustrating, and so this young guy, he came out again, and he like was looking at things, and then the projector started again, and there had been a little bit of a wait this time getting it going, and so people gave him a bit of a chair and said, "Look, whatever you did, like, remember it so we can know how to fix it next time." And again, young, 11, 12, and he said, "Oh, actually, I didn't actually do anything, so I don't know what happened. It's just working again." And I thought that was great. So fresh and open and honest of him. And I hope lots of people would say the same thing in that situation, but not everyone would. A lot of people might have taken the like, "Hey, oh yeah, it looks like I fixed it. That's great." And take the appreciation from other people, and maybe the applause. But he was so open, like, I didn't actually do anything. I don't know what's happened. It's just working again. And that's such a refreshing, I'd say even important attitude to have in life in general. And this, of course, also applies to our Qigong practice. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. When we do Qigong, we can have different motivations for why we do Qigong, of course. Sometimes people do it just for enjoyment. Sometimes people do it to learn something new. Sometimes people might come to classes as a social thing. Sometimes people are aiming to develop specific skills, because you can develop specific skills with Qigong as well. Often, probably one of the most common motivations people have for doing Qigong is to improve their health. And that can be anything from just generally improving their health to helping with very specific issues that they might have. In the process of learning and practicing Qigong, often different things will happen, relating maybe to these different motivations people have. In terms of awareness of your energy and skill with it, different things will happen where, little by little you develop more skill, you experience different things that you might not have experienced before, and your awareness develops. And also in terms of your health, different things can happen where you might get improvement in some of the symptoms or issues that you might have. Sometimes you might have days when you don't feel so good as well. And one of the things that I often express to people who are learning Qigong on the courses I run through Long White Cloud Qigong is the importance of when you experience these different things, whether it even be just changes in what your awareness of your energy, but certainly as it gets into different things that you experience in terms of either improvement in your health or sometimes days when you're not feeling so good. And, and that can be anything like feeling tired a particular day or feeling a bit stiff or having a headache or maybe your digestion's upset, whatever it might be. To not be too quick to attribute whatever's happened, either good or not so good, to your Qigong practice or to anything else necessarily as well. To not just jump to the conclusion that like, hey, I'm feeling good today or, better than yesterday and it must be because of my Qigong. And the flip side of that is I have a headache today and it must be because of my Qigong. Because when we're too quick to attribute something to, well, our Qigong, for example, in this example, that can then stop us from being aware of the other things that may have been the true cause of either the improvement or the not so good experience that you might have. And if you then miss those other things, you're not doing yourself any favors in terms of like, hey, what really made me feel better today? Now, almost invariably over time doing your Qigong practice, if you are, using good principles and you're practicing in a healthy way, and that comes from if you certainly if you're studying and learning the practices properly, you will practice well, and almost invariably over time there's going to be improvement in lots of different things in your health and your energy and your awareness and so on, right? But in terms of these momentary changes, it's really important to not think like, oh, I did this and now this definitely comes from this. Because it could be something like, so like on the positive side, for example, that, okay, today I feel much more energy and much more clear-headed. You're like, oh, it must have been my great Qigong practice this morning. And it could be. I'm not saying don't think that it could be, but it's helpful to also just like go, okay, let's zoom out and consider the other things that I've been doing and if they might have also played a role. Because it might have been that you drank a lot more water yesterday and that has led to you feeling more energy and clearer headed. Now, if you just think, oh, it was just my Qigong practice and you miss the fact that you drank a lot of water yesterday and that's helped you to feel better too, well, then you're not going to replicate that going forwards and you might not drink much water for the next week and wonder on the flip side why now you don't have so much energy, and so, the flip side of that, one day you might go through your day and go like, oh, I've got a headache today, right? And again, you're like, oh, maybe it's something I did in my Qigong practice that's caused me to have a headache. Now, that's possible too. There's certainly things that we can do within Qigong practice that can overstimulate things, or maybe we push ourselves too far and things like that. It's not like, sometimes people get these ideas like, whatever you do in Qigong, it can only be good. Well, look, if it has an effect, if it actually does something, that can either be good or bad. Now, the way we practice, it's almost invariably good, but yeah, there's times when you can go too far, you can push things. Yeah, and it's good to be aware of that. It's good to be aware that that's a possibility, so that you can evaluate your Qigong practice and go, oh, was there something I did? Maybe I should change the way I'm doing a particular practice, or back off and do it a bit more gently, or whatever might be the case. But at the same time, if you jump to a conclusion that it was definitely your Qigong practice that did it, you make an inaccurate causal connection between those two things, you might miss that you didn't drink enough water today, and actually the headache has nothing to do, or the low energy or whatever it is, isn't really to do with your Qigong practice. It's that you didn't drink enough water. Or it could be that you ate something the night before that didn't agree with your digestion, and as a result of that, now you're you're low energy or have a headache or something like that. Or the fact that maybe you had an argument with someone and that's affecting things. All of these different things that might go on in our lives that might be contributing to how you're feeling and what's going on with your health, with your energy, and so on. So there's a balance to be found. There's a balance to be found in certainly being aware of the benefits that come from your Qigong practice and recognizing and appreciating those. Being aware and recognize that it is possible to overdo things or do things in a way that might lead to some unpleasant effects sometimes, and so that you can make changes if you need to reevaluate your practice. Be aware of both those things, but also be not too quick to go like, hey, this led to this, because it didn't always. Very often there are other factors as well that are also contributing. And I've mentioned a few: how well you slept, amount of water you're drinking, the food you eat, your interactions with other people, like so many different things. Sometimes even medications you might be taking, all these different things. And you want to keep that open mind, not be too quick to attribute something to one thing, but to take the big picture, consider all the things going on. And then within that, you might then go like, oh, actually, this is nothing else has really changed. I think it was this thing, or maybe these couple of things together that have contributed to, again, either the improvement or maybe to something unpleasant that you might experience. You're much more likely to attribute things correctly, more accurately that way, rather than misattributing things. And that then is going to lead to a greater and faster, better improvement in your health and your energy, and maybe all the positive things that you want in your life. So yeah, that was my inspiration for talking about this young guy just going, I didn't do anything. He didn't like make out like, hey, somehow, touching a button that he wasn't sure what happened. He just knew that he didn't know. Now, something clearly changed when he did that, and it could be that it was actually just something internally resetting within the projector or on the laptop. So he literally may have done nothing. It may also be that he or someone else bumped a cable or something like that. Having that knowledge that you don't know is a good starting point to widen your awareness, and then maybe, particularly if you have repeatedly have experiences, to go like, oh, I still don't know. It's like, hey, actually, I noticed this other thing. Maybe it's that. And then over time, go like, and then you become more skillful, more aware, and so on. So, a nice little analogy, hopefully, from a little interaction that I observed that applies pretty well to our Qigong practice as well. I hope you've enjoyed the vlog, and look forward to seeing you on another one soon.